your forward drive, your forward thinking, whatever. We're going to start here at its smallest. I'm trying to record this, but I'm also trying to get it on the screen, so if I need to show you something in really tight, I can. Like this. So if you take a look at the head on this guy, right here, so I need everybody to look at this head. Most of these are set up the same way. There's a quick release that's on the top of this. So to use this quick release, there's this little thumb thing right here. It's a release that it's just a safety that you push this forward and that releases this thumb part right here that allows you to open this up and remove the plate. So I need everybody to remove the plate. It's really hard to do with one leg. Just saying. Not only that, but when you do this, so again guys, if you can see the screen, that'll also help. When you do this, you'll see that there's this little brass pin that has come up, and this lock, the thumb mechanism on here, is locked in the open position. So I need you to take this little plate out. So this little plate, if you take a look on most of them, you'll see this is a 1/4 inch thread. This fits on most standard 35 millimeter cameras, but this is not what you use for bigger and heavier cameras. So most medium format cameras take a 3/8 thread, and you can change these. So to change these, you unscrew the entire thing, you'll see. You have to sort of like push on it, but you can unscrew this and pull this entire thing out. And then a lot of them, this one, particular one doesn't have it. You'll find the other thread size exists somewhere on this. Sometimes it's on the bottom of the plate. Sometimes it's actually on the bottom of the tripod part itself. There'll be another part underneath it. This does not have, I take that back, it's right here. So on mine, it's this brass screw that's in the back. This thing comes all the way out. I think this is one of them. I could be, no, this is one. So this guy comes all the way out. And then this screws in the base where you took the 1/4 inch out. And then this is the thread that you can use for your medium format camera size. So these things are really important to know that those exist. There's also, they make adapters that'll go on the top of this one to just convert this to the heavier one. It's just a really small little bit of metal. It's just like a screw extender. But just realize that that's the part, and then this, I'm going to put in the 1/4 inch again, and I'm going to put the other one back away. And I'm going to go get an Apple box because I am not going to be like this for. I will be right back. Okay, mucho better. By the way, this is an Apple box. Oh, you should have something to write shit down with. There's going to be notes that you're going to need to take. So I'm going to wait. You don't have to do it right this very second, but I am going to wait. Okay. So when I do these lectures, you have to understand that just the way I think, I'm not really. I can be a little all over the place. This will be a little all over the place. So it's just when things come to mind that I feel like I need to say them to you or tell them to you. So right now we're talking about tripods, but immediately I'm going to talk about Apple boxes. That's what these are called. This is a full Apple. They come in halves, which is exactly half the width of this. So this cut in half, and then they also come in quarters. So when people use these, you can actually use it in its lowest position like this. You can use it a little bit higher like this, or you can use it even higher like this. People can stack them up, do all that kind of stuff, whatever. But you'll hear people calling for Apple boxes all the time. I would never go on location. I would go on location without a camera before I'd go on location without an Apple box. Anyway, back to our tripod. So if you take a look, you will see that there's this little brass pin that has popped open, and it's holding this release. This release will not close now. The way this release closes is that you take the plate that you're going to put back in, you set it in, lift it up so that it goes into these two grooves in the very top, and then this pushes down. I'm going to push the other side down, and when you push the other side down, it's going to push that little brass pin in, and this is going to lock. Be careful, this will pinch your finger. But this is now locked again, and you can see you can't open it again because this other lock is keeping it from an opening. So we're going to hit and pull it open like this. The other thing to realize is that when this is actually in place, it's just something to pay attention to. When this is in place, the way a tripod is actually designed to work is there's 3 axes for a tripod. I've seen people rig this tripod with a camera with all of these handles underneath their camera. So they're up here in front of the, it's like, what are you thinking? So the way it's really supposed to be done is you want the longest handle to actually be pointing at you, because this is the handle that tilts forward and backward. If you then have the other handle that's pointing to the left, this rocks it right side and left side. And then finally the one on the very bottom allows you to rotate it sideways. But so you get this set up so that the handles are coming at you. The longest one should really be pointing toward you. And then you'll notice that the solid, not a point, but the one of the straight edges of this, this is a sextagonal shape. Good, you can still look at the screen and see if you can't see what I'm talking about. This part right here, that is actually pointing right to the left. So when you mount this onto a camera, you don't need a camera yet. But when you mount this on the bottom of a camera, you know that one of these sides has got to be here on the edge like this. So you would mount like, here I'll show you. You would mount like this with this side on this edge, not with one of the points on the edge. If you do it this way, it will completely throw off how it mounts inside your tripod. Does that make sense? And then you're going to have to go in here and rank it. The other thing you should know about this is that when you put this on, everybody should have a camera. You need to see this. There's a camera right there. All right, everybody have a camera? Okay, so just watch here again on the screen so that you can see this. I'm pretty sure you can see this. So on these, there are 2 sets of threads. There's there's the little brass base that's at the end, and then there's this collar that's on the top. You need to have this collar opened all the way up in order for these to work. What this is designed to do is to take up slack once you get this thing completely seated into the camera. If this is actually, if the collar is twisted all the way closed, that's as much of the screw as you're going to be able to get into the camera, which is not enough. Your camera will fall right off. So you got to make sure that the collar is all the way open. And then that's how much screw you now actually have to get inside your camera, considerably more. So just make sure that that's done like that, and then you screw again, I'm screwing the brass knob, not the gray collar. You screw it in all the way, but this is still now really loose. But the screw is all the way seated in the camera, but this is still incredibly loose. That's when you actually tighten up the gray part. And so this is now mounted, and then this goes into your camera again. Cleats go in first, and then it mashes down like that. And then before you let go, you actually crank on this thing. You make sure that this thing is really locked in here, because if this part fails, you run the risk of your camera falling. You don't want to do that. So then, when you go, is there everybody good on this one part? All right. Do me a favor, guys. If something is not working for you, stop me. It's I can't. I don't want to take the time to stop and make sure that everyone, because we end up wasting so much time by just saying over and over and over again. Yes. Yeah. So that's just a washer that's sitting on the outside. That actually is probably on the wrong. It's keeping it from completely screwing out.
So then the lens is going to go.
It really shouldn't be on there.
No, so the handle. So when you're
So
think about it. So when you take that photo, you want it this way, so then the lens.
Like the point.
So guys, you need anything to be your tool. This is not going to be the tool.
Okay, but it doesn't matter like what side of it.
I don't. I'm so excited. Oh, you're good. Yeah, that's why I'm
Be right back. That's why you have a letterman with you, so we have a little flyer.
I guess it's not the wall.
So the handle should be facing towards me, but the camera should be facing me.
That's I wrote down was like the talk about the longest limb facing towards you. Cause like, and also
But like,
if you're shooting, you realize that like it's not set up right. Like you'll know because it'll be harder.
Yeah, that's what I mean though. Is that type
It'll
of
be harder to shoot and adjust if your stuff at the
So, I mean- yeah.
Okay, so when I actually go to set up a tripod, I don't do it with a camera on it. I think it's a really stupid thing to do. It's just too easy to fall. So I'm going to release my camera. I'm going to leave the bottom plate on it. And then we can actually work with the tripod itself. Okay. So there's a number of strategies that you can use to get the very same length on your legs on a tripod. The ones that I typically use, because most people want to start with a tripod that's kind of at the level where you would be standing. It's just kind of a general thing. Of course, there's ways that you can drop way down with these things and all of that kind of stuff, whatever. But if you want to just sort of like that general part, what you do is you always start with the leg that's closest to the top. And we're just going to open this up and pull it all the way out. And I'm going to do this on every leg, but first, I'm going to actually do the next section like this, and I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to do it the width of my thumb to my little finger. Because what I need is a consistent extension on all my legs. So if I do it like this, and then put that into place, then I'm going to do the next one, again, the first column all the way out, the second one out, just the distance between thumb and finger, the third one all the way out, and the fourth one, thumb to finger. Then my camera is actually close to being where I would want to shoot with it. This has got a center column in it, so I can pull the center column up, and the camera at this point is going to be sitting right where I'd want to be. Sort of makes sense? Yes. It's just anything that's consistent, right? So that's a consistent move for me, right? It's always going to be the same thing, right? So it's just an easier, quick way to measure it. So I'm going to drop this back down. There's another way of doing this. So if you collapse that bottom leg again, there's another way of doing it. And instead, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to rig this so it's a little bit higher for me, because this is a 4-section. Yeah, this is a 4-section leg, not a 3-section leg, so they're a little bit shorter. But I'm going to go ahead and drop this one all the way out. So everybody else is, I'm going to collapse everyone else. So only one. And just make sure that this is the height roughly that I wanted. And I'm going to say, yeah, this is the height that I want, right? Just one leg out to its angle. But now I put everybody together. I set the one leg down, and then you just open legs till they hit the same spot. And now they're all the same. And so you'll be level again. When you do get a tripod out, you're not going to see this part. A habit you should always be in is this. When you get this out, you always kick the legs. You do this. Always. Because if one of them is somewhat short like this and you go to mount something, it can actually drop like this, which can actually lead to that, and then all of a sudden your camera's down again. In high wind situations, even with a tripod, these things will shake. So a lot of these, this doesn't have one, but there are a lot of tripods that they will actually have a hook that comes out the end here. This doesn't have a hook. This has got a release for a different reason. But the reason that you want the hook, and you can rig one a little bit differently, is, with the hook, you can hang a sandbag from this. It just puts an enormous amount of weight on this. It helps stabilize it. If you can't do that, then what I will do a lot of times is I will take, what's this called? This is not a clamp. This is an A-clamp. Guess why? Because it's shaped just like an A. So you take an A-clamp, you put this up on the top, and then you've got stability. I know photographers getting in really long lenses that will double tripod. So you'll have a tripod for your lens, a really long lens. You'll have a tripod for the lens mount and a second one for your camera, and then you bag them both. Again, you get into really high winds and you're shooting with incredibly long lenses. There's just too much vibration, anything like that. And so this will really help stabilize that part. Does that make sense on this part, on all of this? Oh, okay. You can put your tripod away. Make sure you pull the cleat off the bottom of the camera and put it back on. Oh, another word, guys. If you have tripods that have got these like grip mechanisms for the legs. But if you have ones that actually have threads around them that you can tighten, do not over tighten your stuff. You will actually strip that stuff out and the tripod will not be good anymore, whatever. You want to be firm, but you don't want to grab a pair of pliers and crank those things tight. It just doesn't need it. Okay, I need everybody to grab a C-stand, please. Clearly I need a videographer. Okay, so first things first, looking at this is not rigged correctly. Just looking at all of this. So you would say, well, what's wrong? So I'm looking at this saying there's something wrong. What's wrong with this? And you guys so spot anything. There's only one way this is designed to be set up. Only one way. So I'm going to open up the base first. So this is called a C-stand. They name it that way because of the legs. But anyway, it was actually, people say that, but the truth of it is there was a company called Century that made gear. And so It was their stand, so they call it a C-stand. But at any rate, the bottom here, there's different mechanisms for different manufacturers. This is actually a really good one. So there's a lock on this that there's a collar that you pull up to release the lock. And when you pull it up, then you can actually rotate this and you'll hear it lock into place. Always pop it against your leg to make sure it hits into place. But you'll also notice when I pop this in place, it's rotating. That should not be happening. So if you take a look down here in this base, there's a screw down here that allows you to take this entire column off. I want everybody to take their column off. So get it down, loosen this up, pull the whole stand part out, you can set it down. This thing is called a turtle. And you can see on this turtle right here, it's actually spinning, and this should not be spinning. And again, this is exactly the kind of stuff that yours should not spin. Try and actually spin it. This should not be spinning. This should be locked into place. This one is not. So, job number one as an assistant. The minute you get to broken gear, anything that is wrong, you stop right then and you fix it. You don't like put it back. You don't do any of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to fix this. There's a small screw here that takes an Allen wrench to fix. Now there's two kinds of Allen wrenches in the world. There is what we would call standard or American, and then there's metric. I'm going to go get both because I don't know which one this is. I don't know whether this is, if it's manufactured in Europe, it would be metric. If it's manufactured in the US, this nut is actually at the longest of the legs. And now this doesn't spin. A photographer sees you do this, you're on their good list. They're thinking, okay, they're paying attention, they're coming back, they're coming back, they're coming back. That's what you want, right? So anyway, this is called a turtle. The reason these are great like this is that they take different sizes. So this is a 40-inch stand. They come in 20-inch stands as well. And then they come with what they call a pin. Don't ask me why they named it this way, but in a lot of studios, you'll hear them refer to this as a butt plug. I know. Believe me, I know. It's like, why? I don't know. But at any rate, what this is, you find these, that's what this is. It fits into here whenever you have a floor stand. Oh, I know, right? Sorry. So, at any rate, there's a good chance I'm going to hang on to this because there's a good chance somebody's going to find this as well. All right, so I'm going to put this back in. The way this should be rigged is you want all of these tightening nuts to be perfectly aligned. So you want this one to be aligned with this one, and this one to be aligned with this one. And then finally you want the knuckles, so this black thing right here, this black piece right here, is referred to as a knuckle. This is an arm. This is also a knuckle right here. So the knuckle, when it gets rigged right, this nut is also in the correct place. And then finally, you loosen up the upper arm like this and twist so that its tightening part is right. All of these need to be in a perfect line like this. And you want to try to get the arm as lined up as best you can with this guy right here. Does this make sense, everybody? The reason this matters is that now, when we go to break this down, this is actually needs to be twisted. So this first setup right here is not in the right spot. This actually needs to be twisted so that it's running along this guy right here. So I'm going to reset this. and then tighten it up. So now everything, all of this is all in order. And the reason you want it that way is that this will now actually hang on one of those stands correctly. We don't have one of those stands over here. You guys know what I mean? This is going to hook on that stand right over there. So this is how these actually get rigged, is exactly like this. So there's another important part to this. So I need everybody to set their C-stand down. Go ahead and collapse it, just set it down. And then I need to go. Takes a village. Go ahead and just set it down flat on the floor. Just set it flat on the floor. Okay. And now I want everybody to just pick it up. Well, this is encouraging. No, this is encouraging because there's not a single person in here who picked this up correctly. Not one. So what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? This shit really matters. This is the stuff that, again, they will be looking at you trying to figure out. Just the opposite. Just one side. These all lines. This is how you pick up the C-stand. Your hand is around and traps the arm. Why? Can you just grab that the way you grabbed it earlier? The initial grab on that, and then hand that to me. And I'm going to grab it the way it should be, and guess what I do to her fingers? I crush them. So again, nobody picks it up like this because it'll crush your fingers when you hand it off. So again, these are the things that people look for. A photographer, you go into a studio, you're brand new, and they look for shit just like this. Do they know how to do this? I mean, it's an unconscious thing, but it's like, no, nobody would never hand a C-stand like this. Ever. Right? We good on this part? Okay, so you can open this up again.
Upside down, just open it.
And I need everybody to grab a Speedotron head. You might as well grab an umbrella while you're at it.
Would it be wrong to like flip it upside down or like open it up?
Oh, to put it upside down? To do sort of like this?
Yeah.
You know, anything that works for you is fine, I guess. I mean, I've never, but again, what happens is, to be perfectly honest with you, you can see with me, you get up, you throw it one way or the other, and it's just done. And then you open it up just the opposite way, and it's done. And then I always hit it against that to make sure that the lock is set. It just becomes second nature. It's easier. One of the things that I will say about this, pet peeve in every single studio, is people who do this. So I'm going to do your let's turn it upside down, right? And you go like this to turn it upside down. And somebody hasn't tightened up all the screws, and I could have just broken my foot. Right? And then if I'm working at your studio, I hope you have insurance because I'm suing you. Oh, you think I'm kidding? A broken foot is not a really bad thing. My wife was on a set and somebody got killed when a boom fell on her. Yeah, and death actually, they take that really serious. What? They put the studio out of business. And we'll talk about insurance later on. Okay, so anyway, back to this. What's wrong with this stand right now? As a budding assistant, what would I certainly be the first thing to actually go after right now? What? Sandbag. No, because I haven't even put it in place yet. It cracks me up. Everybody sandbags shit before they then move it into place, and then they're like this. Right? No. What's this? A fucking piece of black tape. Why? No, because somebody was too fucking lazy to ever take this thing off. But you, as the new assistant, you're on this shit. So you peel this thing off, right? You take it all off. You don't leave this stuff on. You see stranded tape like all of that. However, don't do it quite yet, because what's going to happen? What's going to get left behind on this? The gunk, the tape stuff is going to be on here, right? So write this down on your little note list. The thing that you use to remove this stuff, some studios have Goo Gone and that kind of stuff, most of them don't. What's the best to take this stuff off is stuff called naphtha. It smells just like lighter fluid, because that's what lighter fluid is actually made. Old school lighter, Zippo lighter fluid. Yeah, you can't miss it. So anyway, I'm going to give you the list of cleaners in order, and this matters. So the first cleaner you always go to is dishwashing liquid. It's a really great grease cutter. It's great for glass, it's great for plastic, you don't need to worry about anything, metal, it's fine on all of that kind of stuff. However, the best thing it's for is it's a grease cutter. So anything that's got fingerprints, that kind of stuff, it works much better than that blue spray shit. But at any rate, that's the number one thing, and it's the mildest. Your next move that you go to is alcohol. Alcohol is a solvent itself, but it has a really high evaporative rate. And so the advantage of it is that when you put it down on something, it doesn't stay very long. So even if it would possibly damage something, it tends to evaporate pretty quickly. But it's a relatively good solvent. A lot of people will clean things like computer screens with a mix of half alcohol and half water. They'll dilute it a little bit. But be careful, when you're doing a computer screen, if you have a screen that looks like, so this is my computer like this, my laptop, right? And I want to clean, this is my screen. Imagination now, guys, right? I know that this is not a laptop. Anyway, turn it off. Flip it so that the screen is actually flat. Then you get a solution of half alcohol and half warm water. Distilled water would be the best, but you don't need to go that crazy. Put a little bit on the tip of a microfiber cloth and start in the very center and then slowly work your way out to the edges, because you don't want, when you get to the very edges, you really don't want any liquid there at all. Does that sort of make sense? And then immediately turn it over and buff it out. But you'll see the alcohol will cause that to evaporate really fast, so it doesn't sit there. Anyway, the next solvent up the chain, up the list is naphtha. Oh, first back to alcohol. You can't use alcohol on plastic. Alcohol will etch plastic. You can't use alcohol on shellac. So unless you know what a piece of furniture is really finished in, you do not use alcohol on it, because it'll etch. Alcohol is the solvent that they use to make shellac. So if you put it on, it actually dissolves it back to its liquid state, and you've totally fucked the finish on the 4,000-year-old antique in somebody's house, and then they sue you for anyway. So anyway, that's alcohol. The next one up is naphtha. Naphtha is safe to use on plastic. It's also safe to use on shellac. It's safe to use on lacquer. Yes.
How do you spell
Naphtha, I think.
You're missing an H.
H. I'm missing an H. Well, here.
Naphtha.
We have it all here. It's here at the studio. And Lord knows everybody needs a little hopping session, right? So
Shellac. That's gonna be G-O-G-L-E. That's gonna be cool. Shellac. I want to get
S-H.
I was going with S-C-L-A-K.
I'll put an S too.
I'm thinking
It'd
she
be
was
like
when
a
I thought we had
QUE,
it.
like a shellac.
It isn't even close to what it is.
Shellac. I mean, as long as you spell it like
Okay.
correctly.
So the first thing you use is denatured alcohol. Again, dishwashing liquid first. Denatured alcohol. Then naphtha. You're right. Then acetone. This is the next one up. So this stuff this is, and it's interesting. A big part about being an assistant is being able to think on your feet. So you need to clean something, you know acetone is what you need, but you don't have any, but there's a hair and makeup artist in that back room right there. Do they have any?
Yeah.
Why? How do you know that? Exactly, it's nail polish remover, is this. So you go ask them for a little nail polish remover, and there you go, you're good to go. And then the mother of all, after this, is lacquer thinner. Be really careful about lacquer thinner. It will, with the joke about huffing, I used to work with a guy who was a huffer, and lacquer thinner was his choice. It's every huffer's choice if they can get their hands on it. It literally eats chunks out of your brain. Yeah, it's well ventilated room, fans on, the whole night. It's really dangerous stuff. Don't fuck with that stuff.
Where did naphtha fall on?
So naphtha comes before acetone and it becomes after alcohol.
Yeah, so like dishwashing liquid, alcohol, naphtha.
And then in the same acetone range is mineral spirits, paint thinner. It would fall roughly in that same range for roughly that same reason. So anyway, I would take this off and then I would clean this off right off the bat. But what I would do, frankly, if I saw this actually happening, is that I would wait until the end of the day, and it would be when the day was over and we were breaking down and putting stuff away, I would just look at the photographer or at whoever's hiring you, the studio manager, the second assistant, whoever it is that's actually hiring you, and just say, I'm going to stick around and clean your stands. I'll get all this stuff off. Do you want the job or not? Okay, back to our rigging right now in terms of all of this. So we've talked about the stand, we've talked about how to get this all set up right, we've talked about knuckles. So I want to go ahead and put the knuckle, I'm going to go ahead and extend the arm. I'm going to put it out like this, so I need everybody to put theirs out.
Yeah, I was just trying to make sure they all like
So, yeah, go ahead, you tighten it up, tighten it up. Good. And then we should all just leave. Anybody see any danger that we would be leaving behind?
A lot.
This is one of the most dangerous things in the world is this. People, again, you two right there, close one eye and look at this thing right now. Can you see it? You guys, close one eye, look right here. Can you see that? Right? This is so easy just to turn right around and just literally you don't see it and you walk right into it and it takes your eye out. This is so dangerous. If you go by and you see somebody, because what happens is a lot of people are going to set this up and they go, oh no, I'm not going to use that head, I want to use that head. And they just run over really quickly to pick it up. But they leave this thing out for, it doesn't matter, it doesn't take more than 5 seconds for somebody to accidentally walk into this or God forbid run into this. And it's an accident waiting to happen. So it doesn't matter if you're going to go get that head, just temporarily drop it down. That's all you need to do. You don't have to put it away, but just don't ever leave something up like this. Now, there are cases where you've got to leave something up like this, where this is going to be rigged like this. You have to have it like that. So if you're going to do that, you tag it. And by that, I mean, some people will just tag these with tape. I don't think that's good enough, especially if it's black tape. So we'll just do this. And it's a flag, right? But it's not a really good flag. Instead, what would be much better would be to do this. And instead of that, what would be even better still would be to do this. Make it obvious, right? And then you can leave this out like this if you've got to do that. Okay. Again, if you put tape on it, take it off. So, there's a right way and a wrong way to rig a knuckle. Is mine right or wrong? Right's always the worst bad word. Is mine incorrect or correct? The way I've got it rigged right now. Why? Yeah, so here's the deal, and everybody can do this part. So what I want you to do is go ahead and set yours up so that what we would call the weight end of this is going away from you, right? So I'm not going to use this other knuckle end right here. The weight's going away from me. And you can see this handle now is pointing to the left for me. So I need everybody to rig theirs just like mine. Yeah, that's right, that's right, that's right. You guys on the other side. Oh, no, you're right. I'm sorry, you're right. I'm backwards. Right? It's like back. Okay, what I want you to do is just barely have this tight. Like, just barely have this tight. And then I want you to grab the front of this and pull down. And you'll see what happens is that it loosens this knuckle up. Right? That means it's incorrect. The problem with this, what happens is that you rig this and you rig it really tight. And you think, well, even if it's the wrong way, it's really tight, that's never going to happen. But if you leave it set up for a week or two, what happens is that it's bizarre, but I'm telling you this happens. The heating units in a building, the L that goes by, the buses that go by, there's these subtle vibrations that happen in buildings everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. That over time will loosen this thing up. And all of a sudden, the really tight thing that you had on Monday is completely loose by Friday, and then the weight will cause this to fall and collapse. To rig this the correct way, you actually spin this around so that the weight is going to still point away from me, but now this knuckle is on the right-hand side, not the left. So I need everybody to spin theirs around, however you want to do it. It's not that part, it's this part. It's the part that's on there. Yeah, dude, keep going. And then just turn the whole way.
Oh, good.
And now that's on the correct side. Got it? So again, you know you have it right when the weight end is going away from you and this knuckle heavy part right here is on the right side. That is correct. So now we're going to do the same thing. Just loosen it up so that it's just barely tight. And now pull down on this. And what you'll notice now is it starts to tighten the knuckle. So in the one direction, you're loosening it. In the other direction, it tightens the knuckle. Which would you think would be a safer way to rig this thing? Is this working for you guys? Is this making sense? It's one of the most dangerous things in the studio, and people spot this shit all the time. Yes?
On the right side?
Yeah, so no, you're correct. Yeah, so here, again, loosen this up just a little bit.
You can ask them about this. It's on the right side.
And more, right? But I do like this.
And a
Same thing. Yeah. It's just, these are the things that matter. Are we good on this part? Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of people rigging stuff on here as well. And one of the big mistakes that I'm also seeing on this is that nobody's doing what I'm doing. What am I doing that's different from what everybody else in this room is doing? Yes. The higher these things get, the more you want this thing anchored to the ground. You're scared as shit about this stuff falling. So your foot is always, always, always on this turtle. It doesn't matter what. your eyes don't need to look down if you've got this with your foot on it. Your eyes need to look up, because what you're really scared about is getting rigging that's up amongst, there's wires or cables or lights or something else that's up there. There's set stuff that's up there. Anyway, does that sort of make sense? So, okay. So I have got a problem right now, because the problem that I've got right now is that if I really want to, this is rigged correctly, but these nuts right here, these tightening nuts right here are in my way. I can't get this thing any lower than this. It's hitting these, right? So I can't change this, but I can spin the bottom of this. So you loosen this up and then just spin the base. And then you're good to go again. Because now I can get this thing really low. So I don't know why people do this, but if you need a head, we're going to put a head on here. If you need a head to be at this height or higher, you get rid of the arm. There's no reason to have this rigged. If it's just going to go straight up, if it's at this height or higher, you do not use an arm here. So everybody grab a head and just put a head on top of this guy. And again, it'd be a whole lot better if I saw a lot of feet on stands. Thank you.
You have to.
Okay, the reason you don't want to add this to it, again, it'll set off just a little bit, but there's no reason to actually have that stuff on here. So this will actually go really well from here to go up. When you raise these things up, you always start with the column part that is closest to the head. It seems like that's really obvious that you would do that. Again, what am I not doing right now? I should be looking at this, right? It's not down here, it's up there. Oh God, somebody had another head on a boom that came over here and I just hit the boom, which knocked it over and fell on you and killed you. I know, it's a dangerous place. Okay, so the worst thing that you can see anybody do, the way I can guarantee you will never be asked back, is to do this. Raise the bottom column first. And then have to climb up here like this to do this. Look how stupid I look. This means I've been in a studio once in my life maybe, right? I mean, this is just idiocy. Do not do this. However, there are times where you do need to use an arm. Most people don't really think of what they were really for. There's two purposes for an arm, so go ahead and take your head off and put your arm back on. Make sure you rig it on the right side. All right, so I'm going to put this head on it right now. What I like to do, no matter what I'm ultimately going to do with it, is I like to get the pin really close to me. I don't want to stick something on the end of that because it's not balanced. I don't have a counterweight on that. It might take off on me, whatever. So I don't really want to do that part. But so this way, I can get a head on this. And I'm going to go ahead and undo the coil. And so this will give me a little more offset. You'll see that on a regular head like this is really the max that you can get it down, which is quite a bit. On a Pro Photo head, it's the collar doesn't bend that much. So on a pro photo head, you can go about like this. If you need to get it even down more, that's why you would use an arm in this situation like this, so that you can just get it down like this. Make sense? So this part works out pretty well, but again, this would be primarily for keeping the head relatively close to the center. So one of the advantages of this is that I can get a great deal of height on this. So if you don't have enough height with just a regular C-stand, you crank this all the way up. Foot on a stand, and then you take your next column up. And then you take your next column up. If that's where you need it, guys, that's where you need it. This is not about, wait a second. If your gear is driving the bus, you are in the wrong job. Gear is your bitch. It should not be the other way around. You do not let your gear force you to do things that you don't want to do. If you need to do it, you need to do it. Now, if you need to figure out another way to rig this because you're a little nervous about that, that's a different story altogether. But, you know, I need you to go out on the lakefront and all those rocks and set up a massive studio light set on those rocks. Can you do that? Yeah. Make sense?
The fact that it's like wobbling right now is okay.
So again, I would sandbag the hell out of this. To be honest with you, if I needed to be this high and keep it for there that long, I'm going to go to a much heavier stand, which we're going to get to in just a little bit. But hey, it works. All right, so when you bring it down, one of the things that you also want to do on this right now, we don't have these hooked up to power packs. You don't want to ever move heads with the modeling light on. Why? Because this happens. All of a sudden that happens, and a hot modeling light, it'll break the filament on it. Guess how much a modeling light for a Speedotron head costs? Hey Maria, off the top of your head, do you know what a modeling light for a Speedotron head costs? It's like 35, 40 bucks. Yeah, 30, 35 bucks, something like that, yeah. You start going through a lot of those, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, let's not get that guy back. He just went through 2 modeling lights. I'm not paying him that much, right? All right, so bring this back down. So I want to rig this as a boom, though. So I'm going to show you the best way to do that. Because the problem with rigging this as a boom is, do I put the head on? Because I'm going to extend it completely out on an arm. That's going to be the goal here. That's what I'm going to try to show you how to do right now. Do I do that first and then try to get the counterweight on the back? How do I do this? What order do I do this in? So I'm going to show you the trick that always works for me, and I think it's the best way of doing this. I'm going to take the head off. I'm going to grab a sandbag. There's sandbags around here, so everybody grab a sandbag, please.
You got this. You good? Okay.
Go ahead and take your head off. All right. All right, so this is how I start. I'm going to loosen this up, and I'm going to take it again. I'm doing it the right way. It's oriented the right way. I'm going to do the weight side out here, so this knuckle is pointing towards my right. But I'm going to point this down like this. I'm going to roll the other knuckle so that it's upright like this, just a little bit. And tighten it up. Then I'm going to grab I'm going to open up the throat of this. I'm going to grab the sandbag and put it over the top of this. Now, there are some people who will just leave this at this. That's a mistake to do that. You don't want to leave this at this, because this is, when I go to move this thing, this can rotate, and this is what can happen. It can rotate like this and then fall. You don't want that to happen. So again, if you start out like this, open up the throat of this and put the handle of the sandbag inside the throat of the other knuckle and tighten it down. Because now what happens, even if your bag rotates like we just did before, even if I bring this open and let it fall like this and it drops, it can't, it just hangs. It's not going to go anywhere. But it helps if you have it pointing down and keep the bag close to the stand here. What you don't want to do is try and do that same trick I just showed you with this thing way out like this, because then it's forcing you to hold this right here, and if you let go, this whole thing is just going to go over. Right? So if you keep the sandbag really close to the column, you're in good shape. Then you put your head on. But one thing I'll tell you about booms. So right now I'm walking to, so far the whole time I've been back behind this, but now I'm moving to the front. And this is really dangerous because the thing at the front that can happen is, again, if this knuckle gets loose, this whole thing can fly up. So I don't know, I think you're all new to this part of my class. So true story. Working, my early days working at Playboy, there was a guy who was on set. He'd been there. He was a really good assistant. He'd been there longer than I had. He was working on a boom, and he was at the front end of it like this. And something, I forget what he did, but something, anyway, the head that he was working on suddenly just slid off, and the boom flew up, hit him under his chin like this. He bit through his tongue. Oh, it gets worse. His lower teeth went over the front of his upper teeth, or his upper teeth went over the front of his lower teeth. Anyway, they locked with his tongue stuck in the middle of this, and blood just went like everywhere. Right? So we call 911, the police come, or EMTs come, whatever, and it's amazing. They have this little thing, it looks just like a dreidel, or like a little spinning top. It's made out of plastic and it's threaded with like screws, and they stick it into the side between your teeth, and they screw it into your mouth to actually pop your jaws open, at which point even more blood went everywhere, and they took him to the hospital and they sewed his tongue back on. But I tell you that story because I want you to always remember deep in your mind just how dangerous booms really are. So the way you work on a boom is exactly what I'm doing right now. You always have an arm over the front of this. Because now if I've got an arm over the front of this, no matter what happens, it can't go up any higher than my arm. It's not going to hit me in the face. Right? So if you were ever going to the front of a boom and you're thinking about trying to rig something, your arm always stays over here. You grab this, you just keep it like this, then you can go ahead and put a head on this. With your arm over this. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, put it out.
Yeah, and then just-
Oh, I thought it was between.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's the,
It's just
Oh, no,
yeah,
no,
it's that big
no,
number
no.
there.
Anywhere in there that'll
Yeah,
like
first
crank
I
down.
was trying to turn the turtle, then I was like,
It's all right here.
I was fine, it's fine, like,
Okay. So now we need. Oh wait. So now typically what I would do at this point is if you've got your cord cable going around the front of it or whatever, I would take it off. And the only reason you want to take it off is so right now, if you take a look at these guys right here, it's extra weight and I want to balance this thing out now. So it's not going, that cord is not going to stay there. So go ahead and take it off. And what I'll do is I'll take it back and I'll just run it over the top of the knuckle. It's just a great way to hold it. Yeah. And that way it gets it off. But now again, we are going to balance this now. So you either need to move to the back or you need a solid hand on the front. I'm going to keep a solid hand on the front. I'm going to loosen this up. I'm going to lift this up and start to push it to the back. And what I'm looking for is where does this hit equilibrium? Where does it not, like that, is completely hands-free. And this is not tight. So this is now balanced. This is how I want it. So I've got equal weight on the back side and the front side. That makes the column, this is the center of its gravity right now, it's really incredibly secure. I would not stop here. We do have this counterbalanced, but we do not have this safely rigged. You would want to add a sandbag to the bottom of this stand as well. Yeah, and then just start to slide it back a little bit. You'll find it's balanced.
Slide like this back a little bit.
Yeah, when you get it balanced, you should be able to let go and it not move. Are we good? Have we all found balance? I feel like, yeah, something. Okay, so I've seen the strangest shit in the world here. I saw somebody once do this. They were shooting, and they wanted to basically have this over the top of their camera, and so this is what they were doing. So, does this look right to anybody in this room? No, this is as stupid as it could possibly be, right? So the way a boom is really intended to work is it's supposed to be set offside like this so that you don't have all that shit in your way. And so now I can do this easy, right? So that's what booms are designed for and meant to be for, right? They make things longer or taller, or they get things offset. They float a head out into space. So this could actually be on my set as long as it was out of my frame, it wouldn't matter. And this is how you ultimately do it. Make sense? Okay. So we've got a really heavy rig going on right now. So to take this off, this is a relatively easy one to take off, but you'll get these. There's some bigger booms over there that we're going to look at in just a second. You can get these things where you've got 100, 150 pounds on this boom. This is really dangerous to fuck with, especially if it's up high. You don't want to mess with this. Get it as low as you can. This is as low as I can get mine right now. But then in order to break this down, take the knuckle off the stand with it entirely intact and set it down on the ground. And now you have no weight to worry about. You can take all of this apart. Everybody take theirs off. This is all about muscle memory. Take it off, set it down, and then you can take the head off of the front, and then you can take the sandbag off of the back, and you're not worrying about stuff flying around or hurting anybody or you having to hold it or anything else.
Taking sandbag off. That's good. Taking the sandbag handle off.
And then go ahead and take your arm off and put your head back on the stand by itself. Grab a hunk of tape, and while we're talking about tape, just a small thing, don't get painter's tape, that's the blue one. Here. You just need a piece of it, so if you got, we can share. So we need to talk about tape, but I'll wait for everybody to get back. Okay, are you done? Okay, just grab a hunk for yourselves. So for me, just so you know, when I walk into a studio, whether I'm an assistant, a photographer, it doesn't matter what my role in that space is. Typically, well, that's I wouldn't do this as a tech, or I wouldn't do this as a client, but as a photographer, or certainly as an assistant, whatever. I go into the studio, first thing I do is I put on a bracelet of tape. You always want to have this with you. How many times have you helped somebody pull out a roll of seamless and it comes time to tape it down? You say, hang on right there, I'm going to run and get some tape. You do that, you look like an idiot. It's a waste of time, don't do that. The other thing I do is I put a utility knife in my back pocket so that you've always got something to cut seamless with, or to cut whatever it is with. You have it in your back pocket. I also have a meter strapped on the side of my belt, and a color card in the back of my other pocket. Like religion, I use it all day, every day, in every shoot that I do, and it's just something to have in your mind like that, to be thinking that way. So tape, we need to talk about tape because this matters. The blue tape here is painter's tape. It's the most expensive tape in the studio. It's designed to release easily. That's why people use it, because you can put it on walls, you can then paint a line across it, and then pull it off, and it doesn't pull the paint off. So it's a really good tape to use if you're concerned about the finish. So a lot of studios that you go into have hardwood floors. A lot of photographers will expect you to use something like that, although they won't have that 1-inch stuff. They'll have stuff at least as big as this, so you have something you can really work with. But it fails over time by design. So if you're going to have a set that's rolled out for a week, you don't want to be using that tape. You certainly don't want to be using it on those rolls of seamless. It is a waste of time and money and all of that kind of stuff on that. It just is. So anyway, that's the least sticky tape. The next least sticky tape is actually this black tape. The black tape of all the gaffer's tape is the weakest. The next one is the gray gaffer's tape. That's got more stick to it. But the one that has the most grip of all is white gaffer's tape. So if you really want something secure, you use white gaffer's tape to do it. But let's say you've only got white gaffer's tape, but you really need to actually tape something to a floor that you're really worried about tearing up the finish. What you do is you take the tape like this. So wait, is there any white gaffers right around here? You guys got a roll of it? Not here. So this will pull the finish off of a hardwood floor. I can promise you that, especially if it's been sitting there for a day or two. It just sets in. So before you put it down, you put it on your t-shirt or on your pants. Your pants work really well. And you see what I'm getting all over this piece of tape? It's the fuzz from my shirt and from my pants. This is so radically weakened, the glue on this, that they are now safe to use this on a hardwood floor. But I would still be nervous about that. I mean, again, Purser, why do you seem so nervous about that? What could possibly have gone wrong? Oh, the house that you were shooting on location in New York for a week for Lord & Taylor. Some assistant of yours used tape on the floor, and when they took it off, it ripped up the finish of the floor. And the homeowner insisted that we not only redo all of the floors in their 6,000 square foot house, they insisted that we do all 3 levels of it so that the finish matched on all 3 levels. For literally a little 1-inch piece of damaged finish. Yeah, $20,000 later, I get this nasty call from the producer going, what was that all about? Yeah.
What was yours?
So you guys had to pay for it, or?
No, I didn't have to pay for it. The irony of this was that the company that I was shooting for self-insured, which is a huge mistake. Because self-insurance basically means you're going to take the risk, that nothing's going to happen, so that you don't have to pay an insurance company a premium to actually do that. It's stupid business. Would you have a car without insurance? No, why? Because you don't want to eat that, and you certainly don't want to pay for the person that you ran over or what. I mean, you know, there's a reason for insurance, and they were being cheap and didn't buy it, and so they ate it. But I got a very, very angry phone call about that. Anyway, so marking stands. How do we actually mark this stuff? Because this is going to happen to you all your whole life. You're going to have something set up and you're going to think it looks perfect, and the photographer is going to say to you, can you take that light and move it over there just a little bit, whatever, and you move it over there and they'll do a single frame, and then they'll look at you and say, oh God, that looks horrible, can you just move it back? And then you can't get it exactly back, and and again, they stare at you, or in my case, I would stare at you, right? So I'm going to, and just do this, just set your head to point at anything, it doesn't matter, but have it figured out. So I'm going to point mine at this column over here, and I'm going to raise it up just a little bit. That's all I'm going to do. So set yours somehow so that you know what it was looking at. Okay. So our first thing is, whatever you've got, but also raise it up a little bit. I don't want it just setting flush all the way down. So it doesn't matter how high, just get it a little, it doesn't matter how much, just a little bit. That's fine, we're perfect here. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is mark the base. So a lot of people do this. They simply will make an X in the center. That does you absolutely no good, don't bother. Instead, what you do is you do small strips of tape. I do something about like a half an inch-ish, roughly about that size. And then I'm going to show this to you as close as I can get it. So the way I do this, you want to make a V in the front of this. So the way I typically do it is to lay a piece of tape all the way across the front like this, and then cross it so that these two touch right in the front, so that I have that. You only need to do that on 2 legs with a C-stand. You need to do it on 3 legs with a pick stand. So what is a pick stand? I'll go get one and show you.
Facing the ball.
This is a pick stand. So these are the kind of stands when people are trying to travel extremely light that they'll actually work with. They have a ton of them back there. And the thing about this is they open it up, all the legs are identical. That's not the case with the C-stand. So that's why you only have, with these, you have to mark all 3. Exactly the same way I just showed you, but you have to mark all 3. With a C-stand, you only need to mark 2 of them, and I'll show you why. It doesn't matter which 2 you mark. So now that you've got 2 of them marked, pick up the stand and twist it and set your legs back down so that they fit perfectly in there. It can't happen. It will only go in one way because the legs are different lengths. So I'm going to go back over to my more centered set. And set this up to point at that column. I'm going to go ahead and mark the front. Anyway, that's how I would mark the beginning of this. So this helps so that if you move it, then it doesn't matter. It's really easy to get it back exactly where it was. But what we don't have on this, what we're missing, what we're lacking right now is the whole way this thing is rigged. Its height and its direction. So for its height and direction, the height is the number one thing we're going to pick. So you need to get your grease pencil out, and you're just going to put a line right here on the top column. If you have multiple columns that are extended, you mark them both so that you know how to get them both back. But now you'll see, once you've actually marked it with your grease pencil, if you lift this thing up higher, you can see the grease pencil mark right on it. So even if I lift this up higher or lower, it doesn't matter. I can always get right back to the height that it was at. So drop it back down to the height that it was at. But now I don't have the angle. So for the angle, what you do is you actually do a vertical up and down mark on not only the arm, but you also do it on the knuckle of the stand. So it looks like this. So I've got my mark right here. It's showing, wow, a little shaky there. I've got my mark right here for the height, and then I got my mark right here, and the corresponding one right underneath it here. So now, when you actually completely change the entire stand, so I'm going to do this. I am going to drop this stand down. Go ahead, drop yours down. And I'm going to walk over here and set it there and say, how's that look? And the photographer goes, that's horrible. Can you get it back to where it was? And I go, yes, I sure can. And you come back over here and you put this so that it lands in the foot mark. You open up the throat of this so you can find the height mark. I've got it right there. You line up the vertical marks, and this thing is exactly where it belongs. So the angle of the head, you can actually mark those things as well. It's harder on these, but if that actually happens, you just lie to them and you tell them you got it. No. Yeah. Did that work for you guys? Okay, so the best thing about this is that grease pencil rubs off. And so you can clean your marks. Now, you don't have to use a shirt, but it doesn't matter. It comes out of your shirt as well. So what else goes in your kit always? Grease pencil. You can do this with a Sharpie. The problem in using a Sharpie for this is that either one of two things can happen. If the chrome on this is really good, it can wear off when you move it around, and so you'll lose your mark. Or the other is you got to clean it, and you got to clean it using, either I would go after, my first thing would be naphtha. That's what I would try on it. But if not that, you're whipping up the acetate, and it's just, again, grease pencil is your best friend. Make sense? Okay, we didn't.
So you did the one horizontal one and one vertical one for.
Yeah, come here. Well, no, I've erased mine. So you've got have you got a horizontal one on here yet?
Horizontal.
Okay, and then so then the vertical one. So it's not a vertical one. It's how far you're twisting it. So come here. So you put a mark here and a mark here. So this controls this.
See.
So you know how to do that. So you've got height, and then you've got direction.
Gotcha.
That's all. Cool. Yeah. Okay. So can I have your white tape again? Okay, so you remember I said there's no reason, a lot of people put X's in the front, and I said there's no reason to put an X in the front, or in the middle. That's not entirely true. If you put a white tape right here in the middle, number one, it's easy to spot. But what you can do with this is, you write on it, I'm gonna put shot 1, and for my shot number 1, I'm gonna put 800 watt seconds minus a third, and for my shot number 2, I'm going to put 2400 watt seconds even. Why?
So you have the settings saved in case you have to reshoot something?
No, I can do multiple setups with my lights, and I don't have to worry about the power settings. So let's say you're doing folding fashion and you're shooting an F8 for all the folding stuff, but you want to shoot at F16 for the beauty. I don't want to keep screwing around with this. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of tricky ways. You can change the ISO really fast. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do really quick. But it's a way to do multiple light setups and have the information right at your fingertips about how you want to do that. Or maybe this 2 mark right here, maybe that's with the head put over here, and I've got a whole nother setup going over here to do it. So you can just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So there's important information that you can put down on these marks right here, but it's not about location, it's about the settings on the head. Make sense? Questions? I know you guys are thinking, how fucking much can there be about a C-stand? Christ, we've been at this for 2 hours. All right. This is how I've got my setup going. And we're just going to pretend that this is a power pack and I've got this plugged in right here. Is this rigged correctly? What's wrong?
The cable
Is everywhere.
Why?
Because when you pull it, it won't fall, but it'll pull it.
That's exactly perfectly right. So the issue with this is that people will argue this all the time until you actually show it to them and point it out. So you've got your, say this is rigged exactly the way it's supposed to be, and somebody walks along and trips on the cord, this thing comes down. If on the other hand, it's underneath the base, and somebody trips on the cord, it pulls the light stand. Which would you rather have? I've had people argue this to me all the time, and I don't say a word, I just do those 2 moves, and I've never heard anybody go other than, oh. Again, this is the shit people are going to look for, and if somebody calls you out and says, well, you shouldn't have that under like that, all you need to do is go,
What's up with those faces too?
totally, right? Okay, let's do this, guys. It's been a while. Let's grab a quick 10-minute break. If you can be, I've got like 10 of 4. Be back at 4 o'clock. We will wrap this up. We've still got a lot of other stuff to do. So anyway, yeah.
So you just want us leaving everything?
Yeah, you can leave everything just like it is.